pollution around the globe.
Korea's occupational and environmental diseases, which have been in full swing since the 1970s, are examples of global industrial reconstructing and a close link between industry and health. And these pollution problems are not confined to one country. As the sources of pollution move across borders as countries change their industries. Until the 1960s, Japan was a haven for pollutant companies. But with the growth of civil society and economic development in the 1960s, attention to environmental issues gradually increased. In 1967, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government established the Pollution Investigation Bureau to look into problems in the city and enacted an ordinance with strict standards. In addition, in 1968, Minamata disease, which manifested from mercury poisoning, was recognized as an occupational disease, paving the way for the recognition of victims of pollution. This led to the approval of 14 environmental laws by the Diet in 1970. Followed by the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency in 1971, and the enactment of a law on compensation for pollution-related damages. This put Japan in a world-leading position in regulating pollution, and forced the Japanese government to reorganize many facilities that emitted high-risk pollutants. The easiest way to do this was to relocate them overseas. Economic cooperation between Korea and Japan, which began as part of post-war reparations, had a significant impact on the establishment and formation of Korea's early industrial facilities. Japanese funding, technology, and machinery played important roles in the formation of Korea's heavy industry in the 1970s, but behind the scenes was the so-called pollution export. As part of the 1970s corporation funding, many of these high-risk and high-polluting industrial facilities were transferred from Japan to Korea and Southeast Asia. The Ulsan Industrial Center, developed by Park Chung-hee's government in 1962, was already classified as a polluted area. This was an early candidate to host Japan's polluting industries. Non-ferrous metal industries that emitted high-risk pollutants were attracted to Korea from Japan in 1975 in large numbers, including companies that had been shut down in Japan due to mercury pollution, and companies that had been heavily criticized in Japanese society for causing dozens of deaths from chromium poisoning. Despite opposition from local community, the Korean Ministry of Commerce and Industry allowed these plants to operate, with only a hollow promise to order improvements to pollution control facilities. Heavy chemical industry throughout the 1970s symbolized Korea's economic growth. At the same time, the successful industrial transformation was credited with playing an important role in Korea's move towards an export-led economy. However, the large-scale production and export of heavy chemicals inevitably led to environmental problems. Simultaneously, rapid industrialization and the urban sprawl that accompanied industrialization led to rapid pollution of the urban environment, causing citizens to experience the consequences of pollution firsthand. In 1972, in Yeongdeung-pogu, a district in Seoul with a high concentration of factories, a nearby chemical plant emitted carbon monoxide and sulfuric acid gases, causing thousands of local residents to suffer headache and vomiting. As people experienced the effect of pollution altogether, society at large began to talk about pollution and health. Meanwhile, in 1975, deformed fish with curved backs were found off the coast of Ulsan Harbor. And this brought the issue of water pollution to the forefront of people's mind, saying that they couldn't trust the water they were drinking.
Work and hazard.
Meanwhile, it was the workers in the factories who were directly exposed to the transnational relocation of polluting industries and the resulting emissions. The Wonjin Rayon carbon disulfide poisoning case is a prime example of this occupational disease. Wonjin Rayon was the only factory in Korea that produced rayon fiber. Rayon was a popular material for summer clothing because of its low cost and soft texture. But the manufacturing process uses carbon disulfide, a pollutant. Sustained exposure to carbon disulfide can be neurotoxic, which was why these high-risk facilities were pushed out of the United States and Japan that had been its main producer until the 1950s. These facilities were relocated first to Latin America, then to Korea and Taiwan respectively. In case of Wonjin Rayon, the facility in Shiga Prefecture, Japan, was brought to Korea as part of the post-war reparation settlement. The Japanese company was able to dispose of the aging facility at a low cost, and Korea was able to import the plant at a low price as a means of economic development. At the time of the transfer, the problem of carbon disulfide poisoning was widely recognized in Japan. In 1964, Japan even had a standards for determining carbon disulfide poisoning as an occupational disease. However, none of this knowledge was transferred to Korea during the plant transfer process. Korean workers who were sent to Japanese factories for technology transfer recalled that they were never told about the problem of carbon disulfide poisoning. The fact that carbon disulfide poisoning had many non-specific symptoms, such as high blood pressure and diabetes, and that it was not a foul-smelling substance, unlike other pollutants, also contributed to the lower awareness of the problem. Although workers at Wonjin Rayon were experiencing a number of health problems, they were not diagnosed as being caused by exposure to the pollutant, partly due to a systematic cover-up by the company and the lack of medical technology to accurately diagnose and test for carbon disulfide poisoning. In 1981, the first occupational disease compensation was granted to workers of Wonjin Rayon. But the first person to be diagnosed with an occupational disease was pressured by the company to receive a settlement for non-disclosure. The situation changed dramatically in 1987 when retired workers petitioned the Ministry of Labor to investigate the occupational disease problem at Wonjin Rayon. Panel of experts concluded that carbon disulfide was measured in the workplace above regulatory limits and that the workers should be granted occupational disease compensation. However, when the Ministry of Labor's process for recognizing occupational disease did not go smooth, with the support of a group of progressive doctors organized through the 1987 democratic movement, the workers tried to establish standards for occupational disease determination and compensation. The initial 12 victims grew to hundreds a few years later. By August 1994, 359 people had been diagnosed with carbon disulfide poisoning. To date, there are known to be over 1,000 victims. The Wonjin Rayon case was an example of how social issues like occupational disease were brought to the forefront in post-democratic Korea through the alliance of citizens and experts, and how specialized disciplines such as occupational medicine became competitively involved in regulatory science. Meanwhile, the Wonjin Rayon factory closed in 1993 due to bankruptcy, and the machinery was sold to Dandong, China, and then resold to North Korea.